For this presentation, we will focus on the immediate innate immunity as it pertains in relation to the ways of war. Parts of this immediate response include the first line and part of the second line of defense. 3 lines of defense. There are 3 lines of defense in the innate immune system. The first and second lines are non-specific defenses. The first line includes the skin, chemicals, and mucous membranes. The second line includes phagocytosis, complement, interferons, inflammation, and fever. The third line is a specific defense and includes lymphocytes and antibodies. So basically, the first line of defense is the brick wall that stops enemy soldiers from infiltrating. Once decommissioned, the pathogen continues towards the second line of defense. This line becomes a red zone for pathogens with rapid, non-specific grenade fire. The grenades do not pick specific enemies to injure. Rather, they have a large blast radius. The third line of defense represents a SWAT team that takes out specific, high-profile pathogens. The first line of defense is made up of 3 kinds of barriers: physical, mechanical, and chemical. We will explain these barriers as they pertain to the skin, GI tract, respiratory tract, and the eyes. The skin is the body's first defense against infection. It forms tough barriers of epithelium that are protected by layers of keratinized cells. This physical barrier creates a blockade and inhibits pathogens from easily entering the body. The skin's mechanical barriers include perspiration and sloughing of the skin. Sebum is considered a chemical barrier. Sebum is a mixture of fatty acids, lactic acid, and lysozymes. Envisioning war. The physical barrier can be thought of as the previously mentioned brick wall, which keeps enemies from infiltrating. The mechanical barrier can be thought of as oil on a hill. The flow intercepts the enemies and allows for deportation from the area. The chemical barrier would be a toxin held in a barrel. All things that come in contact with the toxin are annihilated. In the GI tract, the physical barrier consists of visceral epithelium. The mechanical barrier includes mucus and saliva. Chemical barriers include extreme acidity and enzymes such as proteases. Continuing on the theme, the physical barrier is represented by the brick wall. The mechanical barrier is represented by the oil on the hill, and the chemical barrier is represented by the toxin in the barrel. In the respiratory tract, the physical barrier consists of epithelium. Airflow, flow of fluid, and mucus by cilia are mechanical barriers. The lysosomes found in nasal secretions act as chemical barriers. Just as before, the physical barrier is represented by the brick wall. The mechanical barrier is represented by the oil on the hill, and the chemical barrier is represented by the toxin in the barrel. The physical barrier in the eyes consists of the eyelids and eyelashes. The eyes contain lacrimal glands which produce tears. This flow of fluid and tears constitute the mechanical barriers here.
Chemical barriers include the lysozymes within the tears. Reviewing war. The brick wall represents the physical barrier. It stops enemy soldiers from infiltrating. The oil on the hill represents the mechanical barrier. The flow intercepts the enemy and allows for deportation. Finally, the toxic barrel, which is the chemical barrier, would annihilate all pathogens that come into contact with it. Three biochemical pathways activate the complement system: the classical pathway, the lectin pathway, and the alternative pathway. The complement system is a set of over 20 different protein molecules manufactured in the liver and can be found in the blood, lymph, and extracellular fluids as inactive precursors. There are no cells in the system. With an infection, this system of molecules is activated, leading to a sequence of events on the surface of the pathogen that helps destroy the pathogen and eliminate the infection. The end result of this activation cascade is massive amplification of the response and activation of the cell-killing membrane attack complex. Complement is able to activate cells involved in both the adaptive and innate immune response. Complement triggers and modulates a variety of immune activities and acts as a linker between the two branches of the immune response. The complement system also maintains cell homeostasis by eliminating cellular debris and immune complexes. The classical pathway is activated by the Fc portion of an immunoglobulin in an antigen-antibody complex. It can also be activated by enzymes and a variety of substances, which include endotoxins, cell membranes, and viruses. A Bohr analogy for this pathway would be an airplane pilot dropping a tracking device, or an Fc portion of Ig, in enemy territory. Complement circulates in the blood like foot soldiers and activates upon arrival. The activation of the lectin pathway is dependent on the binding of a lectin to mannose sugar on the surface of a pathogen. A Bohr analogy for the lectin pathway would be using a double agent. The mannose sugar belongs to the pathogen but commits treason upon the arrival of lectin soldiers. The alternative pathway does not depend on an antigen-antibody complex in order to become active. Biological activators of this pathway include bacterial endotoxins, yeast cell walls, and aggregated immunoglobulins. Pathogen surface creates local environment conducive to complement activation. A war analogy for this pathway is a group of soldiers successfully infiltrating an enemy base and remaining together as a unit. They set off smoke flares that are easily seen by other friendly units. Okay, go.
Hi, my name is John Russell, and I'm good at clicking buttons.